Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining both Alberto and I again today
Hola.
as we continue our look back on our pilgrimage for peace, the walk for peace that we did 25 years ago from Rome to Jerusalem. Looking at it not just in terms of the experiences and the stories and the many encounters that we had, but especially looking at how we interpreted things back then, how we looked at them. And now, 25 years later, after through many teachings that have come into our lives, especially the teachings of A Course in Miracles, which have most influenced us in the last 5, 7 years, how we would perhaps look at them in a slightly more expanded way, in a way that is even more healing, in a way that brings a deeper sense of peace with the events that happened, and how we would release them perhaps even more today than we did at that time 25 years ago. And it's been very interesting going through my diaries again. It's been very revealing to me in terms of, how I thought, how many fears I carried with me, how many judgments, how many subtle little resentments I still had, and how they really were revealing themselves to me over and over again from the very outset of the pilgrimage. And I would say from the moment I even stepped on the Camino, I could see that I was carrying some of these fears with me. And one of the biggest ones, which we're going to speak about a little bit today, is this idea of relationships, this idea of the impact that going on a journey like this with so many unknowns, so many things that we are trying to understand within ourselves, and being unable to explain fully what is happening, how that impacts our relationships, our intimate relationships, our friendships, our relationships from the past, the people that we meet along the way, and how we look upon ourselves and those little fears that come up as an opportunity so that we can truly heal them. And that's something that I went through, obviously, as I was walking, and Alberto went through with his relationships, as the signs were very clear that he was indeed to walk with me. And in the last episode that we did together, which we called Exodus, it summarized, or we spoke about very compelling witnesses, if you will, very compelling synchronicities that simply could not be ignored, that were pointing to a tremendous movement that was happening, not just an outer movement in terms of a walking pilgrimage, but an inner movement that was being initiated, moving from a thought system and a paradigm that was grounded in fear and in separation and in loss and in the ideas of suffering, to a thought system, to the promised land, if you will, where we remember the truth of our identity as spirit, as light, as a love that has never changed and that continues safe in the arms of its loving source and loving creator. That's the promised land. This is, ultimately what we are here all to remember together. And the pilgrimage, both for me and for Alberto, ultimately became about remembering all of this, the journey to remembering the truth of who we are. But I'm going to let Alberto begin with this. I'm going to let him begin because he also, from our last conversation, he left us all hanging in terms of, the signs came, and then the fallout of now what happens when you go to tell Hannah, when you go to tell your family, when you go to tell everyone that the signs are clear and you feel absolutely guided to go on this pilgrimage with me. What happened after you told Hannah? Or was Hannah the first person that you told? I don't remember now what happened exactly at that time.
Yeah, for sure, Hannah was the first one because still I was not sure at that time if I was going to take that huge step that I felt that the universe or God was asking me to take. And at the beginning came like a suggestion or invitation an idea that I felt that was being offered to me, and then in that moment when I started to take it serious, because I saw that it yet obviously came from the spirit or from God. Then the first person that I needed to say was to Hannah, because it was the closest that this could have consequence to her. Even if I take it, the journey, or I didn't, I felt that I needed to say her the first one, because I was not going to go one day, the next day, sorry, I forgot to tell you that this has happened, blah, blah. No, I needed to say to her. And it was not easy, because I knew that in the moment that I mentioned to her even the possibility, this was going to be a big bomb, no?
Bomb,
Yeah, in our relationship. And yeah, she was the first one before to know for sure. And when I already knew for sure was when I started to, that was a week later. A week later, when I had the sign, well, not the sign, the clear communication that I had with the spirit or with my angels at that time. I didn't know, but it was my guide, obviously, a guide that came from God, like the voice that talk for God, speak for God in the Course in Miracles. Today I know that was that same voice.
Yeah.
When that voice clearly told me, showed me, through this big image of the angel or the alien of light in the window, no? It was clear. I was communicating with it. It was not something that happened when you don't expect and you say, oh, wow, that must mean this or that. No, I asked it, because I had many signs like that, and then I couldn't say no anymore. It was obvious that there was somebody asking to me to do this journey, and I asked it, and I say, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. Is you really show yourself, no? And obviously show himself immediately in that moment. Then it was not more received signs; it was a communication where I really was proved, no? And it was not forcing me either, but was telling me, this is not a joke. This is not your imagination. I am here. You are asking, and this I am answering. I'm answering you. Then when this happened, finally, first I say to Hannah the possibility. This came all the conflict and all the problem and this brought more drama, more and more doubts too. And then you went to Rome, and you started the work by yourself. And then in this week that I had to start to work with you, still I was asking to the spirit or to God or to my angels, to my guide, that voice that was talking to me. And finally came this answer. When this clear answer came, I couldn't say no anymore. I then was at the moment, at the day after, when I told to my family and friends. I think it was the day after or 2 days later. I sent an email to everybody, to all my friends and family, and I called to my mother and to my brother, and I explained to them directly, because that already it was clear that was going to happen, and that was a decision that I couldn't say no, and I explained to them. The only thing here should be, we should mention two important things. One is that at that time not you, not me, we didn't see relationships like we see them now. Sure. And at that time, even when I knew that my mind affected the world, still I didn't think that affected to that point where what I think and what I expect of my relationships is going to affect the interaction that we have. At that time, I didn't know that. We knew that a few years ago, before the Course in Miracles, we knew already with Ho'oponopono, and through other channels, we started to know that. Way after the time after that, we knew the power of mind. we knew after that this power of mind could affect to our relationships and how they react to us and this interaction that we have with them. Then at that time, the only thing that made me, to be honest with the people, it was because I tried to see them like I saw myself. I tried to see them like souls evolving, you know. I tried to see them like they were capable, that they had a guide like we have, and they had angels, or they had God with them, and I tried to see the best in them, the same that I tried to see the best in me. Then, but still there was the separation that is going in the vision or the philosophy of the A Course in Miracles. Still there was separation at that time. Still we saw ourselves like separate minds, no? Separate minds. But what moved to me always to be loving with others, to try to understand others, is because I saw that all the mistakes that I had made until that moment, it was the same mistakes that they maybe made. Then I needed to try to wait for the best in them. No? And then when I talk with my families and my friends, I was expecting the best in them. At that time, I didn't have enemies, really. I didn't have anybody that tried to harm me or to think bad about me. Maybe I thought that maybe there was people that could think that I was a little lost, but they appreciate me because at that time I had learned to love myself in that way. And then I had learned to love others, even when the others maybe they were not in the right path, you know? And then this, it made me so much easier to speak with others and to say the truth, because I knew that I was acting from the best place, looking the best for me and the best for everybody else, you know. Then for that reason, the best that I could do for others is to be honest and to say the truth. And in that way, I was offering to other people that maybe still were not in my path or in the place where I were, the possibility to find that there was another way to live and to see things. Then for that reason, I was trying always to be honest and to be the best and to say things. That is a wonderful place to be when you are still believing that the world is separate from you. Yeah, it's a great place to be, and knowing too that there is a spiritual matter that is with all of us. You know, there are guides and there are God that is always trying to help us to reach our best potential. Then from there, that was the best place. And from there is where I talk with my family, I talk with my friends, and I was always expecting the best reaction from them. And really, that was what I received from all of them. I received the best reaction, even with my mother, that at the beginning was scared when I said I was going to Jerusalem, or my father. They understood the fact that I was trying to do a spiritual journey. No, and my mother, that was in love always with Jesus, was saying, my son is following the steps of Jesus, finally, you know. And then even that made her to be less afraid and more welcoming to this adventure. And my friends and family, they know me for 2-3 years. I have been doing that. Maybe not in all this crazy thing that looked like to go to Jerusalem in a moment where all the world was very afraid. But they knew that for me, the spiritual path was the first thing. I had quit my job, my secure job, my full-time job, you know, and I had quit even my marriage because I couldn't continue more in a marriage where my partner was afraid of what I could do, you know, or is I could leave or wanted that I follow a path that was not my path anymore. Then they knew that for me the more important was to be myself and to follow this spiritual path. And that is what I did with Hannah too at the same time. I tried to trust in her. She was a spiritual person. She was a spiritual person too. I believe it too that maybe she thought she was going to think about this. She was going to come with us. But for another part, I couldn't stay with her because she was afraid. To follow simply a normal, common path of the world, to work and to have a job and to have children and to have. I couldn't follow. That couldn't be my path because that was not my path anymore. And for what we had talked before was not her path either. But when arrived the moment where we needed to put this to proof, it couldn't, she couldn't, but I couldn't say either you are right. I needed to take this decision. Then even when was painful, but because for me always had been, I don't want to see people suffer, and less is it looks that come from my decisions, from the consequence of my decisions. I knew that before that was the more important statement, that I need to do what I feel that is the right path or the right decision, especially when I am so clearly guided, and this decision that is being pointed to me through God, through my angels, through Spirit, make total sense to me too. If I receive a sign about to rob a bank, I know that cannot from the Spirit, a sign that come from the ego, come from, but when a sign come very clear, like this came, and pointed to very logical, spiritual, loving decisions or reasons, well, I couldn't see. I knew that I needed to do. Then I did it. I say to all of them, Hannah included, and really the answer was very good. The answer that I received was very good, and maybe we can talk more now about the specifics if you want. But I think I'm going to pass you the how you will say
Microphone.
the microphone, and I'm going to ask you the same question, because I'm sure that you had a lot to say too about this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because at the time that I was walking, obviously I did not have a relationship. I was not in a relationship, like romantic, I mean. But obviously I had my family and the people from my past. And for me, it was the big thing was my identity. It was, what are they going to think about, my family, the Moni who has never had a spiritual bone in her body and who has always just simply wanted, her career and the material successes of life. And she has all of that. And she wants to do what now? She wants to walk to Jerusalem. What's going on? So what are they thinking of me? Of course, my friends, my co-workers from my professional life, what are they going to think about me as well?
Throwing your career
Throwing my career out the window, quitting Microsoft, quitting everything that I had done, and all the possibilities that were still to come, working, in a big company like that there were always opportunities being presented. And so it wasn't for the lack of opportunity, but how do you explain that this is something that just no longer has meaning for me? And I cannot answer the question. And this was probably the most difficult thing for me, which is, why are you doing this? Like, why are you doing this? What is this for? And that caused the greatest angst for me, the greatest fear, anxiety, because I didn't quite know how to answer why I'm doing what I am doing. I couldn't articulate it. And I think a lot of it now, looking back, and especially as I was reading my diaries, I was trying to find a bridge. I was still trying to maintain kind of the facade or the appearance of, look, I'm totally logical. I'm still the same Moni. I'm still, I have my reasoning capacity. I have not joined a cult. I have not, lost my faculties here. Trying to kind of say, look, I'm still the same person. And at the same time, I'm not, because I feel something much deeper than all of these outer achievements, all of these outer goals. I feel a deeper purpose that is beyond all of those things, that is calling me. And I didn't know how to bridge those two without looking like I had become some kind of a fanatic, to put it mildly.
One question, because you didn't talk to the people about the signs or to feel angels or spiritual guidance. I spoke about this with everybody.
Yeah,
You know,
I did not.
and you didn't. Then for me it was easier. O sea, they understood better to me even when maybe half of them they didn't believe in these things. They understood better when I explained from that perspective. But for you, I understand if you have not talked about them about your spiritual side. I understand that for them it should be more shocking. No,
Yeah. And
it was.
it was, and it's also, there was always this fear of what are they going to think of me? Are they going to accept me again? Are they going to respect me? Are they going to reject me outright? Are they just going to write me off? And so that fear of rejection, the fear of being judged, the fear of not being taken seriously, all of that was always in the background, tempering my words, making my words what I'm trying to say to others, giving them just enough, but not fully revealing everything. And I saw that from the very beginning when I started walking alone, and I was waiting for you to make the decision to join me. When I was walking alone, those first whatever it was, the first week of walking alone, I could see from my diaries how important it was for me to communicate and being unable to communicate, but on several levels. I was walking in Italy, right? They did not speak English. They only spoke Italian. And the closest I could come was to understand some words and maybe pick up some Spanish and some French and some English and sign language and hopefully communicate. So there was that barrier of communication, just being able to communicate. But then when I could communicate, I found myself fumbling because I didn't have the courage to speak fully about the spiritual journey. And I tried to mask that fear with, well, I'm normal. I used
With
to
a
have a normal
logical-
life.
a
Well,
logical answer.
a logical answer. I'm doing something for peace. It's something, very noble, and I say this with in quotation marks, noble cause of walking for peace and doing something constructive for peace. So I found like a marketing answer. I found the marketing answer that kept kind of the inner world safe and protected, but that allowed me to speak to others, which is to say, this is my contribution to peace. This is what I believe each person can do something for peace, and this is my contribution. Even though in my heart, I knew that wasn't the full reason. How can I say to people, I felt a calling, I was on the Camino, I had a call telling me to walk the way of the soul to Jerusalem, and I just said, okay, I'm just going to do it. How do you say that without sounding like you're either a fool or that you've completely lost your marbles? And so back then, that feeling of not being understood and wanting to be understood was very important to me. Wanting to be still accepted, even though I was walking a path that was completely unlike the path that people had, or in the light that people had seen me before. Because they had, like you said, I never spoke about my spirituality with anyone. The only person who was a little bit open to that possibility was my mother. My mom, who was going through kind of her own personal, I would say, inner healing at that moment in her life, I started introducing her to the same books that I was reading. My mom at the time was blind, so she found these books in Braille, or she found them in audiobooks that she could listen to on cassettes back then. But she was also, opening to that vision and a way of healing all of the memories and all of the experiences of her past in the same way that I was doing with mine.
And I think also Diane, no,
My friend.
your friend Diane, that was the one that brought you to the sick, no, sick,
To the psychic.
to the psychic.
Yeah.
No? I think you could
Yes.
talk with her too, and I imagine with Hannah in the walk, no, that also she was in the spiritual path. But
Yeah.
obviously were people that was not so influential in your more common life, no, we could say maybe.
Yeah, it was my everyday life, the people from my past, especially I think it was my professional life. I was so afraid of losing that because it
That
meant
for them,
losing my identity.
for them you will look like somebody that make no sense, no, for that reason.
It was losing my identity because I still attached my sense of worth, my sense of value, my sense of being accepted to what I did. And to me, I had a respectable job. I had, studies. I had a career. I had goals in life. And being seen as someone who was not, what's the word? Not reasonable. Somebody
Yeah.
who is
Not
not
logic.
using logic, not using their logic, not reasoning things through,
Or not looking at facts,
not looking at the
the
facts,
facts
following,
of the world,
right,
of the world.
following, following signs. What does that mean? And so I was having this inner battle, this inner conflict, but came from one place, and that place is fear. The fear of being rejected, fear of being, it's the rejection, and then being cast out. It's almost, being cast out of the tribe, because
Yeah.
we all belong to the tribes. When we're in our work, we have our work tribe. In our families, we have that tribe that has our back, that is with us, that supports us, that loves us. That's not to say that, my family didn't love me, or that my friends did not love me. That's not
No,
that
no,
at
no,
all.
not all.
Not
Obviously.
at all. It's not about that. But it was such a complete, a path that was just so completely different from where I had been up until that time. The fear of being completely cast out of that tribe and kind of being left alone to survive was scary. So I was trying to find a way to stay in the tribe, knowing that I don't quite belong in the tribe anymore. And the fear of what would happen if I completely let it go. And that was a part of the challenge that I had with you in the beginning when we started to walk together. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here. But that was really for me the relation. I wanted everyone to see me still as somebody who was logical and reasonable, and not some kind of a kook that had just flown off and was following now signs and synchronicities and things that came to her the way she was interpreting them.
I am having now some kind of a revelation. So when you are telling the story, and we are talking about this, something that we don't talk so deeply usually because it's a long time, and we have talked about this many times. But now with the help of the vision of the Course in Miracles, I don't know, maybe help to understand what happened. But I think I have understand too better why this happened in the way that happened to you and in the way that happened to me. And it's because still in the moment where you still were trying to defend your vision against the world, like you are saying, no? That the people was not going to understand. But at that time, I already had, I was for a couple of years, I was following signs. I was, I went to El Camino twice. I went to El Camino where I met you, but I had gone to a Camino before, the year before. And in that Camino, the first Camino that I did, one of the first things that I received in this communication, because I told you from the very beginning, I was feeling the guidance of the Holy Spirit, we will say today, or the voice that talks for God, that speak for God. It had been very clear to me, not only that I was in the right path, because from the very beginning I knew that I was in the right path, like you knew at that time.
This is the thing. I knew I was on the right
Exactly,
path.
you
In
knew.
my heart, I knew, and I was getting more and more confident in the signs. I wasn't doubting
No,
that communication with the spirit or with the angels. I wasn't doubting that.
no,
I was just having a hard time communicating that
communicating.
and having the courage to speak about it confidently and openly, and not feeling like I have to defend myself or explain myself in terms of, I'm
Exactly.
still a logical, reasonable person. I am not somebody who has lost their mind, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That you knew that you were in the right path, because if not, you wouldn't have quit your job and you would have done so many things.
Obviously.
But the point in my own process, after I knew that I was in my right path, one of the first things that I noticed that came very clear to me in my first Camino is that I could influence others for to put them in the right path, because this path was for everybody. The only thing is I still believe that at that time the people needed to choose and needed to be ready for it, and needed to decide by themselves. That is what you believe when you believe in a world that is separate from you, and every mind had their right moment and the things that then, like I said before, that is the best thing to know, to think, and to have in consideration when you are with other relationships, when you are still in that, or in that kind of vision. in a vision of duality, no? Like we will say.
Right. It's that vision of each is on their own journey.
Exactly.
And eventually each person
Will
reach.
arrive.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but you can't be the one to impose that
I
on them.
cannot
You
force
can't
it.
force it.
So
You have
that
to
is
just respect that, they're going to get there eventually, but all you can do is kind of stay loyal
Loyal
to your
your
path.
path.
And if they follow, great. And if they don't, that's
Exactly.
okay. Yeah.
But I already.
And that's a great vision.
Exactly.
It's a great vision to begin.
And I still we apply that vision when we are talking with people in our movie, like the Course in Miracles will say, we are in our simulation, in our dream. We know that it's all is projection. What I expect of my brothers or my family or my friends is what I'm going to receive. The more that I trust that they are in the same path and they are open-minded, the more that I'm going to see that. The more that I expect the contrary is the more that I am going to have that experiences. But at that time, I knew already, thanks to my camino, my first camino, that I could influence to other people only by sharing my experiences. And that was a beautiful gift, because the best gift that you could give to another brother, to another person, was to show them that there was another way. And I could feel that really I could inspire others. I could help others to find that journey, to find their path. And then for that reason, I had put in practice that. That was in my first Camino. Had passed a whole year since I noticed that, and I went to, after that, I decided to go to work to Valencia, but my idea was not to work. My idea was to follow the guidance of my guide, my holy,
The
inner teacher,
guide, inner
exactly,
voice. Yeah.
inner voice, and I could see how he was bringing me to situations where there was conflicts between people, or people that maybe needed a little touch, a little, a little light, for that they could see the light that was already with them. And I had many experiences about that before I met you. Then for me, it was clear that I needed to be honest with everybody. And I already was with everybody that asked me, this is what happened, whether they understood or not. And I say, they will understand someday. At that time, I say, but I could see how that many people understood when I spoke with them in the best way that I could, and trusting in my guide to help me to explain that. Then I had been putting in practice all that for more than 1 year. And then when this journey presented and I needed to say to the people, I was trusting in them. And at the same time, I knew that in trusting in them and telling them the truth, more than defend myself, that is obvious and is so natural that you did at that time, that because I had that process before too. There was a time in my journey where I wanted that the people don't laugh of me, and I wanted that people understand me. And then, I prefer not to say nothing. Is good. I had that too. Then I could understand what you are saying now. But at the moment where I meet you, I had passed that point, and I knew that the one that was sending me to this journey, and the one that had appeared in the room of bone, illuminated there and telling me, yes, I am talking to you, and you know it, and I am telling you, come. He wanted that I went honestly, walk this journey, and at the same time bringing a message with everybody that was open to listen. Not forcing, not everybody, but if somebody asks, tell the truth, because that truth that you are going to share can illuminate the path of many. And at the same time, now we know what's really happening. It was illuminating my own path and your own path, because it was helping us to trust more in this way of walking, and in this truth that we were starting to share with others. Trusting in it, we put in practice, and we explain it, and we go deeper in it. We saw the consequences, how this affected to others, how this affected to us, and we could see the light and the miracles every day. Then now I understand better why for me it was easy, and you, naturally, you were not ready at that moment yet, even when you were in the right path and you knew it. You didn't think that was important at that time to say to others and to pass for the ridicule or the fear that you could be rejected. then I can understand why that happened in that way at that moment. Everything had its time and its process, and thank you, life, for all this. Yeah, makes sense, no? Don't you think?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And obviously this was also the place where I needed to do the deepest work. That was the healing that I needed to happen to undergo myself. The what I needed to look at specifically was that fear. You know, the fear of being either ridiculed or rejected, not seen as somebody serious, hold or valuable, and holding on to not wanting to lose my identity. Because once you lose that identity that you have built over your lifetime, who are you? And that was, I felt like I was in this no man's land of, I don't know what's happening here and I need something to hold on to. And so even though I knew my old life and my relationships were, they were my anchor, both in a good way and a bad way, because they were my anchor that kept me kind of wanting to hold on to something that really needed to transform, needed to heal. The relationships and how I was in those relationships needed to heal. And at the same time, I wanted them there for security. Because should all of this kind of fall apart, and should I have made a mistake in following this path that I was being called to, I had something to fall back on. So I didn't want to be seen as too crazy, so I can go back if I needed
And you
to.
had still the safety net, no, the safety net there, of your other ones that loved you, because they loved you, no, there is no doubt about that.
Exactly. And so I needed to do a lot of I needed to do a lot of healing around these ideas and the fear of what happens if you follow a path that is not the path that everyone that I had walked, the path that, you know, dictated in a way, but I had chosen to walk this path of, you know, going down a professional life and building this identity. And to have the confidence to start building the confidence in that other voice that was now this inner voice, this inner teacher, this inner guide, which I spoke about in other episodes, that was now guiding me through all of these, you know, signs and the synchronicities and that inner knowing, the inner awareness that this is right. And I needed to have the confidence and the courage to speak about that. And that was initially the biggest source of our conflict. When you joined me, it was the number one right away, almost from day one, when we eventually got together. Because I only walked alone for about, I think it was 8-9 days that I walked alone. And I would say, you know, just to kind of, you know, walking alone was because I had walked alone on the Camino in a way. It wasn't like I was afraid of walking alone, but it was definitely, you know, very different circumstances because I was walking on the open road. You're not walking on a pilgrimage path. You're literally just walking on the side of the road. So there was you're in even a greater oddity. And for, you know, drivers and people who are passing you by, it's like, what? You're walking to what? So you're even more unusual and and I felt it even more self-conscious. Well, maybe what I am doing is crazy, you know? But then I would have conversations with, you know, with the odd person who would speak in English or something and who would understand me and who would love what I was doing and who would encourage me. So in the moments of doubt, and this is what gave me kind of the faith and the confidence to keep going. In the moments when I was starting to doubt myself, walking alone, I would have an encounter with someone, or somebody would invite me to tea, or somebody would say, oh, I saw you walking on the road. Come sit and talk to me. And they would give me kind of the confidence to say, just keep going, even though I was still using, even though I was still using the intermediary commentary. This is my contribution for peace. I wasn't going fully deep, but at least I was giving. I felt like I was being that the universe, the guides were saying to me, this is your path. Stay on the path. Everything that you need will be given to you. Just trust.
Yeah.
And so that's where my biggest point of healing was there. And obviously now through A Course in Miracles, I would interpret all of this in a very different way. And we're going to do that now. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that even when you were maybe not talking in spiritual terms, you were speaking the truth, so because the work that you were doing, it was a work for peace. You wanted peace not only for you, but for the whole world. There was something great. You were not looking for selfish interest. You were trying to make a better world. Then, and all of this is what we are doing still today. So the only thing is that you were talking in a way that sound reasonable, not reasonable, reasonable,
Rational.
rational to everybody, and not only to the ones that understood
That were spiritual.
spiritual and you and that understood your path, no, your spiritual path. But that was really in all languages, in all states of minds, or or levels of understanding. You were saying the truth, and obviously this touch to wherever it goes. For that, today we know that when we are in a situation where people maybe look in our dream or in the circumstance, they look that they are not going to accept or they're not going to understand. When we start to talk in the terms of the terminology of the Course in Miracles, we can talk to a level where we are saying the same, that they can understand, but in words and symbols that they can get it, and they are not going to reject or they are not going to be afraid of. Then, and we are doing the same. We are bringing alive. We know now that we are not bringing alive. We are allowing that the light that is already here with us, that is our guide, and the light that is in them shine. But at the end, it's the same. We are trusting in that light, and we know how important it is to do that, to look in that light, to look to that light in us, in others, and to allow it to shine because it's already there. We know now more than ever how important is that. And that is beautiful. Then you were doing a great job at that time. It's not, but in the ways that we can. It's like the course in Miracles say you the same. So we go in the way that we can. We don't pressure ourselves. We don't try to force things. We trust the more and more, and the more that we are advancing, we will say things, or we will allow things in a better way. Because if we try to force and to pressure too much, it's easy to fall in the ego. It's easy to fall in the ego, and we are going to complicate things because we are going to start to project our thoughts or pressures or fears. Then the best way is to flow. For that, the Course say too that peace is the way. We were working for peace, and A Course in Miracles say peace is the way. You look for peace, and the way will start to develop from there.
Yeah, because obviously, I felt that, and a part of me knew that that this great presence, this great guide, this great love was walking with me and guiding me, and I didn't appreciate maybe fully the depth of how much I was being shown so that I could heal. And I see that now as I'm looking back and reading everything again, through the lens, whether it's the Christ consciousness teachings of White Eagle, which is to recognize the inner light, the inner Christ that we all share, the Ho'oponopono, which is to say you are projecting all of this. You are the thoughts, your memories, the past, your fears, your traumas, your expectations, your judgments, all of those are what you are seeing in your world. So what you're seeing really is in outer form, the inner state of your mind, the inner state of your thoughts, of your emotions. And so those were all big healing steps towards understanding where we are now, and the vision of A Course in Miracles, which is essentially also just saying what you are seeing outside is you're seeing your own fears. That's why you're not seeing the light. It is a path of undoing. It is a path of shedding all of the fears and the resentments and the anger and the emotions and the beliefs
And the wrong ideas.
and the false ideas that you have accepted about who you are, who your brothers are, what the world is, that are hiding that light. The light is there. The light cannot be lost. However, we cannot see the light if we're not looking through the light. And so the healing that needed to happen, and that obviously it continues in different layers, the more that we practice, is to recognize that what I was looking at and what I had projected onto, say, my family, onto my friends, everyone, I put upon them my deepest fears, and they were just mirroring back to me, reflecting back to me, or showing me all the fears that I had in me that I needed to address. That's how I would look at it now. And that's how, that's the lens of A Course in Miracles. It's the cause is not out there. They are not the ones who are dissuading me. They are not the ones that in my mind are going to be laughing at me or judging me. I'm doing that to myself. I'm the one who's judging myself. I'm the one who's attacking myself. I'm the one who's doing all of this to myself. Those thoughts and those fears are inside of me. I'm just putting them outside. And they're coming at me through the different voices, be it the voices of, this person or this other person. They just come through different forms, but they're just showing me what's already inside of me. And the great opportunity is to say, oh, I recognize that the cause is inside. The cause is a false belief or a memory that is causing this fear or this anxiety. And once this is healed, once this idea is given to the inner guide or given to that voice that the Course will call, or the Holy Spirit, the voice that speaks, for once you give that to your guide, he is able to give you a vision or a thought that brings peace, a way of looking at this situation and interpreting and understanding who you are, correcting your perceptions, correcting your interpretations in a way that gives you peace. Because ultimately, the peace that we are looking for is not a peace that changes as outer circumstances change. We are looking at developing and living from a peace, and a peace that doesn't change, that is unchanged and unaffected and undisturbed by whatever is happening temporarily outside, in what the Course calls your dream. Exactly. And maybe, we'll talk about this in other episodes as well. This idea of you are living in your own personal dream, believing that it is real. But we will talk about that because the Course is not the only teaching that talks about this. Eastern philosophies, a great many of them talking about this world being Maya, this world being illusion because you are putting out there ideas which are false ideas that are separate from love, ideas that are trying to convince each individual, each dreamer in their dream, that they are indeed separate from love, that they are separate from source, that they can separate from love and be abandoned by love. That's the deepest fear. That's the deepest. And in a way, I was living that with my fears, because my tribe is going to, my loved ones are going to reject me. That's the deepest fear, that the love, you're going to be abandoned by love. You're going to be rejected by love, and you're going to be left out there by yourself, and they're not going to take you back because you've changed so much. Isn't that the story of the prodigal son? The prodigal son. Isn't that the ultimate? That's the ultimate kind of. Each one of us is living in their own way a version of this idea that we have abandoned love and there is no way to get back. That's kind of how I interpret what's happening. And so, it's a healing. It's a healing to be able to look at it and say, I was just merely wrong in the way that I looked at it, and I just needed to release those fears and to remember that only love is real, and nothing can threaten that love which is eternally true and real.
And don't you think that because I think that is the main message of the vision that we hold today, and then still we are studying and putting in practice of the Course in Miracles. The main message is to reinterpret things below, under the light of the Holy Spirit, or the inner guide, to sit.
Or the light of love.
The light of love, that is to sit with your guide, to sit with this partner that we have, that know everything, that know who we are, that know how things are really, beyond the illusions, beyond our mistakes, to sit with it and to try to see things in another way, to try to see things beyond the projections that we have put there. And I think the main interpretation, or the more important for that, the Course teach that what we are here to do is to forgive, but not the forgiveness of the world, that forgive real things that have happened, problems that have happened, or conflicts, or pain that you have done, or others have done to you. It's not that the forgiveness of the Course in Miracles. The forgiveness of A Course in Miracles is to forgive what never happened. It's,
Yeah,
it's,
that's a big leap.
it's a,
That, that
it's
that's
a,
a that's a very big leap. And we'll talk about that too. It's a way. It's undoing. Forgiving is
yeah,
undoing what could never be real.
exactly.
Undoing the ideas that you believe about who you are. Undoing so that you can return to a vision of who you are that is grounded in love. Because the vision that we have accepted of ourselves, the ideas that we have accepted of ourselves, are all based on being separate from
Yeah.
love, separate from oneness, separate from our brothers, separate from our creator. And that's what creates the fear. That's what creates the false perceptions and the false interpretations. And that's what we carry with us. And that's what we bring into all of our relationships, be it with family, friends, and every person that you meet. We bring all of our judgments and fears with us. And so the forgiveness practice is to recognize you can never be separate from love, but you have an opportunity to recognize that and allow it to be healed and to receive another interpretation, a corrected perception, another thought that brings you peace.
Yeah.
And the reason it's not real is because you cannot be separate from love. You cannot, but you can believe you can. You can believe that you're separate. You can believe that you're on your own. You can believe all that. And it is precisely that belief that is fabricating the world that each one is living, of conflicts, of suffering, of struggle, everything. Right. So the healing needs to happen at the source.
Exactly.
At the source, which is the error in the mind that believes these ideas.
And then I think the biggest difference that we have now with what we had at then, and the more clear difference, is that still we at that time believed that what was happening outside of us was real and was independent of what we thought and what we believed. And
100%.
100%.
100%.
And I think the main interpretation that the guide, the inner guide, the Holy Spirit, the higher self, whatever you want to call it, your angels, one that you get is that is not that way. So you are the cause. So your thinking, your belief are the cause of what you are experiencing.
Yes.
And when your thinking and your belief change in the way that your guide is pointing, you are going to experience another thing. And that is the main change. And after the other interpretations that they can help you to have how to handle the situation, how to work your faith and your confidence in all this, how to manage the different relationships while you are still walking this path, that are details.
Yeah.
Details that help to the main thing that you need to know, and is still you are the one that is putting these situations there outside, and that is, I think, is the main interpretation that the guide help you to consider and to be aware of. No, I think you agree with that.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's probably the biggest jump. This is the biggest leap in our thought system, is to begin to contemplate, to understand, and to accept, to accept eventually that you are the cause. There is nothing happening to you. There's nothing happening to you. There is no one outside of you trying to do this to you. You are only at the mercy of your own thoughts and your own judgments and your own fears and your own resentments and your own everything. You see them outside, but they aren't there. The source is not out there. The source is really, it's the voices out there are really the voices in our own minds, the way we continually attack ourselves, the way we continually put ourselves down, what the course called the voices of the ego, the way that we continually judge ourselves, the way that we continually look upon ourselves without love. We look upon ourselves as being unworthy of compassion or love or understanding. The idea, one of the most powerful, ideas in the course, which the course keeps repeating over and over and over again, is the words that you, as you were created by your creator, are innocent, innocent, holy, immaculate. And the first time you read those words, you go, there's no way, that's not me. That is not me, because there is a voice within us that speaks to us of the worst in us, that paints an image of a monster, of someone who is unworthy of love, who has done so many terrible things, who has said so many things, or even thought so many things that have harmed others, or is weak,
unworthy, or is not enough, all these different aspects that you can have, from the more terrible or the more despective You know that you can have about yourself are the same voice telling you what you are never, you can never be. You know, and it's pointing away to the truth that you are a holy son of God. You are a creature of God. You are a loving. You have been created by the love of God, and you still are what has been created for Him or her
or it.
or it.
Yeah. Obviously, there's no gender here involved in what is spirit, but that is, I think, one of the most powerful teachings, and one of the hardest to accept, is that what the source, what God, what the Creator created is like Himself, herself, itself, and that can only be complete. That can only be perfect, that can only be pure, that can only be innocent. That voice that speaks to you about, no, you're just a body that has, terrible thoughts, that has done terrible things, that is not worthy of anything that is pure, is specifically that voice that needs to be healed. It is the voice that is speaking for ideas of yourself, that is speaking for images of yourself that are completely false. And this is really the journey or the pilgrimage that we were undertaking. We didn't fully arrive to that vision when we got to Jerusalem, but that was really what was happening, was to have us reinterpret or look at ourselves from a different place, from a different vision, and to trust the relationship that you have with that inner guide. And I spoke about that, and I spoke about that specifically in the episode that is about the inner guide. But the most important relationship that each of us can have is with that inner voice, and you can call it by whatever you want. If for you, it is, I don't know, the inner light, if it's the higher self, if it's the conscious self,
Your angel,
yes.
de la guarda, how you say?
Guardian angel,
Guardian angel.
or an ascended master,
Or aliens,
Aliens.
evolved aliens of another world, so consciousness. That is the same. Is a higher intelligence. That
the higher intelligence,
the higher mind. That for the course in miracles, it says that it's the voice that talk for God.
Yeah.
And many times put a Jesus like an example, like the model of his voice, but it's going beyond that, even beyond characters and beyond figures and beyond names. It's going to the main creator, from where everything came. But that is the voice. Then to trust in it is fundamental.
Yeah, that is the relationship that we are developing, because that relationship, that very close, very intimate relationship that we have with that inner teacher,
That is in all of us, always. Even
Always.
when we don't notice. It's there.
that relationship is there. That is going to be the inner guidance that you listen to, that whenever you're feeling lost or afraid or confused or judgmental or angry or less than or unworthy, this is who you turn to. You turn to that voice, you turn to that inner presence, you turn to that love that is with you always, that is in you always, that is around you always. That's what we turn to, and that's what we ask, to have these thoughts that are generating these ideas, that are fabricating these ideas, to be healed, so that we can look upon ourselves as he, she looks upon us, that we can look at our brothers as he, she looks upon them, that looks at these situations, and he uses those situations for the purpose of healing, for the purpose of awakening, for the purpose of remembering our true identity. So
Because it's funny that the voice of the ego, that the ego is not other thing that the voice that comes from the identity, the false identity that we have believed that we are. This superior being, superior and weak, separate of everything and weak. This identity had a voice that we had believed that is our own voice. And the message of this voice is always putting us away from the light and away from the greatness that we really are. But the other voice, and is using that small voice, is using every situation where we only see projections of our belief and our mistakes. Every situation he used it to make us believe more in his paradigm, in his belief system, in the belief of separation. They are the witnesses to what we are living, what we are experiencing as the witness of what I am telling you is true. And you are small, the world is dangerous, and all of that. But the other voice, the voice that talk for God, whatever you want to call it, that
For
voice
love.
for love, that voice speak to you, show you the same situations, but is giving you another vision, another interpretation of them. And looking at the same situation is telling you a total different message. And it's using that situation to bring you to the truth, to the light. And especially with this idea of look at the situation and don't be afraid of it. You had put that situation there because you were mistake. It was an innocent mistake. You believe it, you thought that, and then you had put there. It's like a mirror. But we are going to use it to understand what is the problem in your mind that need to be healed. And then you will see how these things disappear. We are going to heal your mind, and that problems that are out there are going to disappear. Then you see how one voice use the situations and the apparent problems out there to make you more asleep and more believer of its cause, and the other voice, the loving voice, the real voice, use the same situations to heal ourselves and to go to escape of that illusions and to come back to the real home and the real self that we are. And that is beautiful. There's two choices. No?
Yeah, always, always. And so, that's, if there is something to take away from this conversation that we've had today about relationships, it's to remember, and we're talking about any relationship that you have in your life. Every relationship that we have is an opportunity to truly reflect on whatever it is in that relationship that is awakening anything within us that is not love, that is not joy, that is not peace, that is not harmony, that is not companionship, like true companionship from the heart. And so every relationship is a wonderful opportunity if we use it to recognize the state of our thoughts, the state of our beliefs. And whenever there's anxiety, basically, whenever there's anything that is not love, it's an opportunity to really examine the beliefs that we carry, the memories, the traumas. We all have things that we bring, and what we identify with, obviously, yes. And from my own example of what I was sharing in this particular podcast and this conversation around how important it was for me to feel that I belonged to the tribe, that I belonged to people, that they took me seriously, that they understood me, that they loved me, that they weren't going to reject me just because I was choosing a different path that was, not so apparently different to the ones that they were taking. They were just showing me what was my deepest fear. And that's really what needed healing. And that's what, I didn't realize it then because it kept showing up in different ways afterwards, but I'm aware of it now. And that's truly a gift because it has changed how I look at all my relationships, how I interact with every relationship, not just my family, my friends. I interact with all. So that's maybe something to contemplate, perhaps from what we have offered today, is that there is an opportunity for healing. And we undergo this healing if we are willing with our inner guide, with that inner teacher. And if for now, as we said, that's for you, if it's a Jesus, if it's a Mary, if it's a ascended master, if it's an ancestor, whatever it is, the form doesn't matter, but it's the awareness that we are not walking alone, that a great love goes with us, and that love desires our deepest healing so that we may know the deepest peace. That's what this vision offers us ultimately, is peace.
And it's not. Another great point here is to look for your happiness and your peace, but at the same time, the happiness and the peace of the whole world doesn't exclude anybody. Then it is in that way how you can recognize that the voice of the spirit or the voice of your inner guide is always going to point to the best solution that benefit everybody, yourself and everybody. And that is a great way to see, is it really the voice of your guide who is talking to you, or is it still the voice of ego in in the ways that he is accustomed to talk to you. Yeah.
Speaking to your smallness, or to smallness, or to
Or
anger, or
specialism.
special, so many ways to maintain ourselves separate from one another.
It's part of the process. It's all a process. This journey, a beautiful process. Yeah. But it's all coming from love always. Then it's when you know who walks with you, you will know. Not the course say how say if you will know who walk with you every day, you couldn't feel other thing that but love and joy
And safety.
and safety and happiness. Yeah.
So we thank you for joining us today on this contemplative journey, as we continue walking, contemplating, reflecting, healing, because these conversations are healing for us, because they allow us to liberate a lot of memories, liberate a lot of people that we have kept in bondage with our ideas. And ultimately, freedom comes from recognizing that once we liberate these ideas from within ourselves, we are liberating them from all of our brothers, and we can begin to see truly, through a vision that is grounded in love, a vision that is grounded in peace, a vision that is grounded in truth. So thank you again for being with us. One final word, Alberto?
No, to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Maybe I will add that this vision and that you are talking, and the course will say too that is the only vision that is that is the truth. So we are walking towards truth, to the truth of reality. Who we really are, what is really the world, why we are here, what is what the best that we can do. So it's a vision. It's not that there are many visions, spiritual visions. That is one vision, and you can see it from many different perspectives or spiritual path, but it's always going to bring to the same place. All the journeys bring you to the same place, to this truth that all we are walking towards. No, I think you would say the same. No?
We are walking home, and that home is love.
Love.
Love,
Love, happiness, joy,
joy, and
holiness,
peace.
and peace.
Thanks again, everyone.
Unity.
And we will hopefully see you next time. Until then, buen camino.
Buen camino.